Okay, so like back in the golden era of 2018 when the Animaniacs reboot was first announced, I had exactly two reactions. The first one was, and the second was, oh dear God, the internet will not be kind to this show. And no, I'm not talking about the, obvious reason. No, I'm talking about something even more foul, immoral, and utterly repulsive. Politics. But first, what is Animaniacs? Well, it was a Saturday morning cartoon from the 90s in the form of an animated variety show where they did pretty much whatever the fuck they wanted. Yeah, the show had supporting characters and regular segments and all that, but Animaniacs really did not give a shit about structure. But the most, consistent narrative thread would be this. A trio of rambunctious 1930s cartoons named Yakko, Wacko, and Princess Angelina Contessa Luisa Francesca Banana Fana Bobeska III, aka Dot, reappear in the 90s where they run around the Warner movie lot, get locked inside the tower whenever they get caught, but then break loose and then vamoose and now you know the plot. Now that's all fine and dandy, but then where does the whole politics thing come in? Well, here's the deal. OG Animaniacs was all about being topical and really 90s with its humor. They took potshots at Chia Pets, the Macarena, Jerry Lewis, and yes, politics. Yeah, there were absolutely no sacred cows in this, man. This show busted out Newt Gingrich, the network censors, Bill Clinton, the Republican Party, you name it. And this being the age of creatively driven cartoons that weren't afraid to tackle more, liberal ideas, most boomerrennials today who watched the show just kind of took it all in stride. Now fast forward to 2018, and some executive dude was all like, hey, let's reboot Animaniacs. I'm sure this cartoon known for roasting politicians and making comments on social reform will be well received in today's culturally undivided climate. Little did they know that the turn of the internet age had resulted in an uprising. A population of reclusive troll-like humanoids, hibernating in the confines of their mother's catacombs, feasting on expired children's cartoons, were stirred from their sleep. A battalion of troops known as the Social Justice Warriors intruded their homes, seducing the trolls with its newfangled progressive thinking and threatening to ruin their self-indulgent livelihoods. But the trolls evolved against this personal attack, grew beards encircling their necks, and proceeded to attack the SJWs on all fronts, devastating any new cartoon in their path that dared to insist their own pronouns. And this ongoing battle was henceforth known as the Awakening. But anyway, Animaniacs just wouldn't be Animaniacs if it didn't use that kind of political humor. It's like a part of their identity, you know? Thankfully, Spielberg pulled off some of his producery mumbo-jumbo and made sure the Animaniacs reboot was just as woke as it was in the 90s. And let me tell you, they are not pulling their punches here. Like obvious Trump is orange jokes aside, this reboot went after the NSA, bun control, the Russians for some reason, and even the grand poobah of political controversy, manspreading. This reboot supplied a shit ton of fodder for all the cartoon reviewers out there to start making YouTube rants about how Animaniacs is pushing an agenda, and how it's too woke, and how my childhood is ruined now, and yada yada yada, same old. But you know, watching this reboot as a fan of the original, I was forced to question a unprecedented and terrifying possibility. Is there actually some truth to that? Look, Animaniacs 2020 is different from Animaniacs 19-something. I'm not gonna gain anything by pretending it isn't. Some of the things like the sound design feels virtually the same, and there are vast improvements to be seen, especially with the animation. But the content itself just feels different, barring the obvious reason. Like, OG Animaniacs has always been pretty socially aware, but the reboot seems to be a lot more, overt about it, I guess? And I'm not just talking about the occasional political joke for your mom and dad to pick up. I mean, like, they took that more hidden wokeness from the original and made it a legitimate part of the Animaniacs brand. They've got dedicated segments here specifically to call out politics, going after voting rights, Fox News, and the whole Russians hacking the election thing. Like, even the characters themselves got a bit of a personality shift, especially Dot Warner, who became hella feminist sometime in the last 22 years. So yes, on an empirical level, Animaniacs 2020 does feel more woke than the original. And to that I gotta say, so what? Look, I'm the least qualified person to talk about politics, alright? Growing up, I wasn't exactly appealed by the idea of watching old white guys argue about which problem is a bigger problem. But now I'm in my 20s trying to get more involved, as is my civic duty, so based on what little understanding I have, I think it's fair to say that Animaniacs has always been pretty left-leaning. I know people like to argue that Animaniacs Prime was apolitical or that they made fun of both sides, but that's not how media works, dude. You know that old saying, every joke has a kernel of truth? Well, that's exactly how Animaniacs operates. For every joke they made about Disney being a rich motherfucker, they were also implicitly leaning towards an anti-capitalism stance. I'm just saying, nothing exists in a vacuum. The thing about Animaniacs is that even when it wasn't taking itself seriously, they were still sincere about the points they made. Some of y'all might say that Animaniacs would never change and that the reboot is trying to appeal to liberals or some shit, but here's the thing. Animaniacs was never immune to change. Taking off the nostalgia glasses, episode 1 was way different from episode 99. Some of the change was more obvious with the removal of Minerva Mink and to a lesser extent Rita and Runt. Some of it was less obvious with the Kids WB era relying more on parodies than the Fox Kids era. I don't know why, but whatever. And then, of course, we have the whole Hello Nurse thing. I'ma just say, Hello Nurse wasn't one of my favorites or whatever, but I noticed that she was one of those characters that was quietly changing in the background, you know? First season, she was literally there just to be sexy and that was it. But come the later seasons, and by that I mean her one song, they start alluding to her being capable in pretty much every way imaginable. And by Wacko's wish, this whole Miss Perfect at everything but people only care that she's hot characterization just kind of stuck. What I'm getting at here is that Animaniacs has always been adjusting itself to keep up with the times, so to act like the reboot is doing something atypical is frankly kinda bullshit. It only feels jarring because they basically had to cut out 22 years worth of changes to get here. Now, that being said, do I think Animaniacs 2020 is handling it well? I'd say yeah, for the most part. A lot of what the reboot does is perfectly on brand, like taking the piss out of celebrities and American healthcare, but at times, it gets a little too on the nose, if you get what I'm saying. Animaniacs hits best when its political jokes are just that, jokes. Or thinly veiled allegories, as they'd say. You know, stuff where you don't necessarily have to understand the politics to enjoy the sketch. But when it starts getting a little pedantic by having whole sketches about the election and manspreading where you kind of have to know the issue to get the full comedic mileage, that's when it starts feeling a little dated. Still, this feels like a natural progression for this franchise to take. Yeah, it doesn't always hit the mark with the hot button issues, but the thing is, neither did the original. Animaniacs Prime had its fair share of duds, as does the reboot, and while that doesn't excuse it from criticism, I don't think it's helping matters by acting like the 2020 series should perfectly mirror the 1990s, but whatever. If I can watch the neckbeards lose their shit at the gender-balanced, pronoun-neutral, and ethnically diverse line, then it was all worth it. Thanks for watching this video. I have more I want to make. To help make this my career, please like, comment, subscribe. I know this doesn't rhyme.